As we can see, a lot of red on the screen. There's going to be a lot to take in this live. I do appreciate everybody tuning in. Good, bad, and indifferent. We show up here every single day and we try to get the right information out. I'll go over mining stocks very quickly because there's some urgency there, as we talked about from the beginning of the week, to expect a sudden shift to the down direction. And we got some confirmation after we tried to run up and not able to break through new highs. In fact, on ones like B2 Gold, we have a 2 candlestick pattern reversal, and it's not, it's a warning signal for mining stocks right now that we're still bullish, but in the short term, there's been a drastic shift from buyers in control to sellers. And it's something I started talking about on Monday. I have this euphoric feeling. We're in euphoria, but now we're expanding. We're making higher highs, but every time we come back down and make expandable lows, and in some cases, like Dolly Varden, we're in an ascending broadening wedge, which is a classic bearish reversal. And we started seeing it yesterday with B2 Gold ahead of the market, where we started to talk about, hey, this isn't right. B2 Gold and Dolly Varden are doing opposite, and that's because that's a 2 candlestick reversal pattern. And what ended up happening is you got a sudden shift from buyers to sellers in a very quick fashion. So that's something that you cannot ignore. And let's be frank, we bought in the mining stocks last January. So please, if you're listening to me, remember when we went through this in crypto, when everybody was having a hard time securing profits and they just wanted to have the, I'm going to hold forever, which you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know, this is the classic time where I would expect, and I don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe it started today. You know, obviously I talked about it on Monday, and then it went up on Tuesday some, but then today it gave it all back, which is classic. It's a classic reversal case right now, and I just want everybody to be aware, like, if you're going to buy in the mining sector, I'm not a financial advisor, you know, but I do really respect that sector, and I love trading in it. I would not be buying it right now, even though it could quickly reverse. You know, even though it could quickly reverse. So, and we'll go over those patterns in a little bit. We have a lot to talk about with crypto as well. Crypto, I think it's a pretty interesting reversal because we have the liquidity zones between 88 and 90K on Bitcoin. So, you know, and I would love to know if anybody has seen the same thing with the mining, you know. I know silver, we talked about how if it's over $77, the banks are going to get hammered with these because they have puts. So I didn't think that it could have any sustained push up. It would just come back to 77 like a magnet. And I told Define that before. And I told them I felt like they were going to use the mining sector because they lost control in the precious metals. I've said it in this community. But they're going to use the mining sector because it's easier. Because a lot of people for the first time ever are talking about silver. Do you know how many people went out and bought silver over 80? You know, and they would have never bought it at 25. It's a good way, again. It's like a instituted tax without putting it in. Make everybody think that everything's got to go up at this exact moment. Silver gets back up over 80. It was up to 82, almost 83. Twice now. And now you figure if a bunch of people are taking their purchase, and this is how I look at it. A lot of people take their purchasing power, they could put it into whatever, paying down bills or investing or whatever retirement or just doing things they need to get done. But they put it in silver, which is a good investment. But they take that purchasing power, and for that exact moment, now they bought, let's just say they bought, you know, I don't know, they have $8,300. So they buy 100 ounces of silver. Well, that takes $8,300 of purchasing power out of your US dollar, which normally is fine. But when you've had an expansive moment like right now, and it's been for so long, and now the political dynamics are changing. When on the news they're telling you to buy silver. Finally seen this the last few days. They're telling you about silver buying on the media. Silver buying. So it's an interesting section we're in. So like, I would look, if you're looking for long-term investments, look for these kind of reversal indicators if it actually plays out deeper to invest deeper into these miners if you like them, or to get in for the first time, or if you take profit, look for the, or look for confirmation of a breakout. Either way. But there's an opportunity here. Now, if you have money on the sidelines, much like crypto, if you were patient, the miners, they've gotten to a euphoric stage now. They are in the possibilities of breakouts too, so don't over jump the gun. But I've been here a lot before. I've done this a lot with miners, and I know how this sector usually works. And the way it clears out for the next ride is it will have volatile 30% drops here within a matter of like a week or 2 weeks, and then it'll right the ship and just go back up. But if you were to buy it here, and let's just say you did get caught in this and it came back down, because the obvious thing would be right now, if you look at ones like Fortuna, it's showing the possibility out of an ascending formation here. But if that's a fake out, then the obvious choice would be either it comes down to this level at 733, or it's just early and it comes and retests the uptrend at 475, like it's done in its past history. And that's just something we have to acknowledge. The monthly's so overbought that it makes me lean that way, even though it can run for sustained periods of time. But I know in this chart, it loves to come back and hit that uptrend before it gets the volatile burst out for all eternity. And the problem with this is it's still early. Like, this chart doesn't actually hit an apex for a while. But if it can break out, that's what I'm saying. You got to be careful, though. You don't want to jump the gun. But these are showing early warning signs. Not it's the coup de grace, but it's showing early warning signs that we want to have a little bit of a correction here. Even the weekly time frame is moving down, which it's more towards neutral, but it would be more obvious if it was in the overbought and it was moving down a little bit, that it could sustain in that area. But once it gets back to neutral, and then you accompany it by the monthly being in way overbought for an extended period, this is where new buyers can get trapped. That's all. If you're already in the market, well, then you just have to make decisions based on if it actually breaks down or not. But it's a different kind of decision. Or if you have massive profits, obviously, well, you're supposed to pay yourself at some point. But that's just, I want everybody to understand that dynamic. But yeah, that's now the news is selling silver. Is that what they're talking about today? Hey, I would like the news if they would start saying that. But there's still, just pay attention to the market. There's so many different signals going on. And yes, we've had a euphoric rally, but it doesn't mean it's over yet. It just means that we have to open our ears and eyes and watch the market and see how it progresses here. See if it continues on this track, or if we can find the buyers again and come back into a strong positioning. Like the 2 candlestick reversal. I mean, you're seeing it in a week, a weekly time frame. You can see it, but I mean, there's been a couple here where we broke up, reverse, and now the second candle reverse made a new low. I'm a little nervous about this, to be honest, because this is showing classic, okay, we got exhausted. There's the 2 candlestick, and then we would just come back. It's not like it's crazy, though. This is what I want everybody to understand. Like, I would be taking advantage. I would be buying B2 gold if this happens more. If it comes down here to $3.35, I'm all over it. And selfishly, I want it to happen because I know I'm in it for the long haul with some of these. So, and it's only because I feel like we do this every time. You gotta find new ways to attract more buyers too. And then you're in that even medium. While B2 gold would still be up 75% from the low, but the ones who bought it on the significant top part of the rally getting induced into it, then they end up eating the bag at some point. It's common. It's just the way it works. So we'll see what happens with gold and silver. And we'll see how this plays out. So, but I'm fully expecting them to do what they do best and make retail hold the bag, just to offer the same bag that they would have bought, even if it goes down to where we're saying that it'll eventually come right back over these levels anyhow, and they would probably sell out on the way down. But that's a classic 2 candlestick reversal pattern on B2 gold. It's a classic ascending wedge reversal pattern, a broadening ascending wedge at that. on Dolly Varden, and now it's up to these particular miners to prove to us why it's not going to reverse. You can even say a 2 candlestick reversal here as well, but it's a classic broadening wedge. So unless it can reverse that, you would fully expect this for Dolly Varden to come back down at least to that $3.99 area. But, you know, we're looking for some way to avoid that. We would need direct reversal with some volume here to avoid this. So that's what we're looking for this morning in that sector. In case anybody's wondering, we're looking for strong reversals to avoid the continuation down, let's just say. But yeah, I would love to know if that makes sense. Do you think that the analysis on the actual pattern is representative, or do you think I'm missing something in there? But like I said, you should be looking for opportunity in this sector when it's presented. And I have a very strict policy. Like when we get into the extreme overbought or oversold in the monthlies, that's a really big telling sign to me, especially when the weekly's moving in one way or the other. But good morning. 11:26 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. Fortunately, the signal is better today. Yesterday, we were having like an ice storm kind of, with the temperature slightly warmer so it didn't freeze all the way. And my signal got hammered by it. I could only do shorts the rest of the day. I didn't have the ability to do much else. But now today, we're going to look at this. And the only reason I started with the miners is because I want to show you that when the signs are there and they're looking like something, you look for them, but you don't necessarily say it's over. You still want to make sure that that's not an overzealous sell-off in the morning. You know, and you want to make sure that it actually plays through. But you have to at least be aware that these things are starting to play out. And they're early warning signals. You know, so it's an early warning. Nothing happens all at once. And look at yesterday, even though I was signaling on Monday that this stuff was starting to happen, Tuesday we had the attempted push back up that failed on everything. And by today it reversed right back down. So, I mean, that's not further confirmation yet, but what it's telling us is we better pay attention to opportunity coming. I'm not looking at this as a bad thing. I'm looking at this as opportunity. When opportunity comes a knocking, I get a rocking and I go a stacking. So, you know, that's what's on my mind. Let's look for opportunity, just like in the oil stocks. Northern Oil and Gas Inc. That's my number one target if we in fact get a dump off in oil like we're trying to expect. And now we're starting to break the structure finally. And this is where the meat can happen. And as you guys all know, my mind is shifting from precious metals. Not because I won't own them, but my buying philosophy. Unless precious metals gives me... If B2 gold goes to 335, you better believe. If it goes back down to 335 or 340, oh my God. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to... Well, we'll talk about it if that happens. So this would be like $11.63. And this is no different than what I was doing last year with the miners. In 23 by October, November, I was positioning, looking. Even though there was volatility moments up, I felt like there was price projections that we had to wait for. And now it's the same thing. For a long time, I was telling everybody buy. Now I'm saying be cautious, save that money, and look for a downturn if you haven't got in. Oh, if only we all had more dollars. That's the problem here. And in my case, with my son, everything's getting extremely expensive because he's autistic and nonverbal, and it's a siphoning pit of so to say, if that makes sense. But let's focus on these other markets now, on crypto. Let's focus on XRP, on Bitcoin. We'll look at some of our other cryptocurrencies, and then, you know, as the days go on, I'll try to keep on tap to see what happens with the miners, to see if opportunities happen, if it stays the same, or if we end up breaking back out and invalidating these patterns. which is the possibility that can always happen. So, but I always think about the government. Like now, all of a sudden, it would just make perfect sense because everybody's buying. Like I've never seen so many people talking about silver, and I keep having this heart of hearts with myself and with the miners. I've never seen so many people interested in my own community recently. And whenever that happens, it's always the signs that we're in the exhaustion phase. It always is. And it's always usually not even the end. We're just in need for a dire correction. And then they use that extreme, euphoric feeling for anybody who's buying it just is going up. And even when you buy a top, normally no matter where you buy, it still goes up, at least a local top. I'm not talking about an all-time. We're not going back to where we were before. So those days are over with some of those pricing. But I can see, like, I know some of them are up 400 or 500% in a calendar year, and it's just, I've seen this before in all these markets. Like, that's why with crypto, I didn't let my emotion do the talking. I just said, Tom, you've seen this before. It's a can't miss right now, which means it's the only miss in town. Because we're up so much, and now everybody thinks it, and that euphoric feeling took over. I talked about it yesterday. Like, I'm not sure what to say. I'm so euphoric with the miners that every time I get into euphoria like this, even when I think it can't go down, because I'm hoping it doesn't go down. Even though I'm greedy and I want it to go down. If it doesn't go down, that means gold and silver continues to go up. So, but I my other problem is I believe silver, it can't be over $77. In fact, they need it more. I think it's going to 66. And I know for a fact, if it goes to 66, the miners are going to lose a third. And maybe that started today. Some are down from 7 to 10. I don't know where some of my miners went. Ever since it updated, some of my stuff disappeared, I noticed. Like, it's great that I have some, but where's Barrett? Where's Hecla? I've noticed right off the bat. Where's Silver Court Mining at? Somebody told me get used to the upgrade or the update on TradingView. It's awful. You're going to have to redo everything, and I'm starting to realize that. Like, where's everything at? I noticed that with crypto this morning. My XDC wasn't on here. Thankfully, I was doing my 60-second update with XRP so I could put it back on. HBAR wasn't on here this morning either. And then I have an update with my mutual funds because the exemption went up to $7,500 this year. So what I did was, you guys know I had profits from mining, some that I had taken last year, beginning of this year when it had made the little push. So I took $7,500, and now you can have it tax deductible. So that comes off my bottom line for this year's taxes in 26. And I decided to split them up in two ways. I went into a new Fidelity one, which is the income fund, and it hasn't made as much appreciation. And I did 37, or what was it, 3,750, I believe, into it. And then I equally split the other, so there's 3,850 into that. And then I put the other ones, I split between, I believe, 1,850 in the Vanguard, the VMMX SX, and then the VMBX, I put the other 1,850. So I filled my maximum contribution. I'm pouring into the emerging markets into that retirement account because I believe by the time I'm retired at 62, the markets are going to look a lot different. And I think the emerging markets are going to just, I think over time they're going to crush it. And I can't sell out of that, but that's all for DAX deduction anyhow. So, is it going to get annexed and become a state? Might as well. Happy Fox, we don't know. We don't know. But I definitely think we're having a cycle flip too. Like, think about it. For everybody who's excited about crypto, don't let this back test bother you. Like, if this was what was happening in the miners, like if we were this oversold and some of these, and the weekly's finally pushing up right now for the futures and XRP. I went to the futures because it's just easier to see, but that's a nice monthly possible reversal candle here. You got a nice inverse pattern played out here in the monthly. Just don't forget this. Crypto, as we're rounding a bottom, gold, silver, mining stocks are starting to round the top, and you can see it in gold because it's got a rising wedge that it's playing through right now. It looks like. You can see it in silver as it printed that 82, almost 83, could be in the same psychological level. You got into a euphoric stage, and I don't care how good something is, the same trading philosophy always plays through. Everybody thought it was going to be at $50. Now what's everybody saying? Silver can't possibly go back down that low until it hits 93. That's the trap phase, in my opinion. We're in the trap phase. So I hope I'm wrong. I actually, my precious metal holdings, I have a lot more stock in than just what the miners, because I know those are artificially beaten down. And that's another conspiracy I have, is they lost control on silver a little bit, but they're in full control of how much they can bring these miners down back to a realistic level and hurt retail. That's the scariest part about holding a company. But again, cheeklessly and selfishly, I want it to go down because the dividends rise up very quickly when that happens, because I want people to hold through a downturn. So there's a lot of reasons I want to be selfish. But XRP, let's get back into the topic of discussion. XRP, that monthly looks spectacular still. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I could say you have inverse candle 1, inverse candle 2, confirmation candle 3. That's a classic bullish reversal setting up in the making. Classic. It's a classic. Here, I'll do it on here in the monthly. I was trying to pull up the futures just because it's a little clearer to read, but I'll just go to this one. This is my chart that I like to mess around with. So as you can see too in the monthly, you know, if these are 3 candlesticks, if these are inverse, here, let me get rid of all this. This is just the one we draw on, so it doesn't matter if I have all this stuff. I just want everybody to be able to see this. And this is something that a lot of people would pay for, to learn all these structures. But if you just watch every day, I'm going to try to teach you it as we go into the flow. Yes, my class thing is basically done. Basically, all I have to do is get myself to put that level for the paid subscribers on YouTube for the, you know, the 8 classes a month, to be able to do that, because there's a lot of people that want me to do it from the ground up. It's going to take a lot of time, and this is just, I'm going to work the second thing. And then my son, he's never, you know, he's autistic, he's nonverbal, he's got a lot of injuries and goes through a lot of stuff, but he does it like a champ. But he's not going to be able to do what normal, you know, a normal situation is. He's got his own normal, which I am blessed that he's like that. I'd rather him be like that than what everybody says is normal. But I'm just going to put in the work now. So then why the clickbait? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Paul. What do you mean the clickbait? What do you mean clickbait? The mass Bitcoin long liquidations at 88 to 90K expect to drop. What? I'm not exactly sure how. What I. I'm just honestly generally interested at your response, Paul. Are you saying because I said XRP looks good right now in the monthly, that doesn't mean it can't come down farther? I'm not exactly sure. I would love to know. But hey, either way, I love your contribution by commenting. A simple comment helps, because then I can see what the audience thinks. Weekly time frame, I'm not afraid of. I mean, I don't see anything in the weekly that makes me go, oh my God, I'm so scared. There is downside for Bitcoin. Okay, if you're saying clickbait, well, my friend, do you know what clickbait is? Clickbait means I'm telling you something that doesn't exist just to get you to come in here when it's not a possibility. My friend, clickbait for Bitcoin, what's this downside liquidity, sir? That's the downside liquidity I was talking about. That's the liquidation. Between 90 and 92 is a big spot. 88 can come down, but I expect it to drop down in those liquidity zones. That's what I expect. In no way am I saying that it's a guarantee, but I expect it to come down there. So that's what I said, expect drop. It just feels like we would come down there and capture that liquidity. That's all. It's a high liquidity zone. It's not it doesn't mean it's a guarantee. And there is no clickbait there, because it can in fact come down there. But if you need lessons I'm going to be starting classes, so you would definitely be somebody who should pay the $50 a month, because if you're getting flexed out by that, there's just nothing to be made. You know, you're the perfect person. You could learn a lot, Paul. And I'll help you keep those emotions in check. It took me years to do it myself. Past time, when I went off on a rail, instead I can use it as an educational moment for not just you, but myself, to see what the general audience perceives, and don't take that as a shot. That's an actual compliment. Because XRP right now, just in the general pattern, I don't understand why, you know, in general sense, with how far it's come down, if it keeps coming here and it wants to do one more drop down, which it may not. This could be exhaustion 1, exhaustion 2, and then we'll reverse out here. But if it's not, the common back test here would still be around $2.08. And it would still make a lot of sense based on where Bitcoin could go. Yes, Happy Fox, that is the truth. Touche, my friend. Touche. I like that comment. Throwing the daggers. It's all an illusion. Thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 1 year with the I told you so badge. Says what Paul means is he entered at the wrong time. I don't know if I get that vibe from Paul. I'm not sure he entered at the wrong time, to be honest. Love you too, Happy Fox. I'm not sure if Paul entered at the wrong time or not, or if he's just sick of getting his mind fucked by influencers. I kind of get the latter. I kind of think it might be the second choice. I think Paul's just sick of seeing one thing and hearing another. I think that's... I don't know, though. I could be wrong. I might have scared Paul away, which I would feel bad about. But I don't think so. I think Paul's got some guts, some charisma, some tenacity. He might have himself confidence, Paul-fidence. But let's before we lose track, let's just remember the CME gap that was left from over the weekend from Friday of last week was down at $1.99.7 or 6 cents. And I always talk about, I hate when we have the immediate rally up when we leave those gaps, because then it always leaves the illusion and it allows the ability, even from a technical standpoint, as a magnet to come back down there. You know, it's a magnet down there. And that's the one thing that makes me a little nervous here. That's why the $2.08 is important to me, because if that doesn't hold, well, I think it's all pretty obvious that we never back tested even this area. You know, from a depending on if you wanted to look at patterns a certain way, I mean, there's always the obvious. We came out of a descending wedge, it looks like. And this can come back farther if you want, but just as we're coming through this whole thing, it almost looks like a descending wedge. I mean, if we put it back like this, would it make more sense? And the fact that it just came up so quick, it always leaves the ability to come back. You know, and that could even be how we come back. I mean, if you look at it, it could literally lead us to a third tap even on support 1, support 2, support 3, while simultaneously back testing this entire breakout. So that is possible. That is possible. Now, what I'm hopeful for is we were still in wave 4 expansion and that this would play out to at least 261. But we know that that doesn't need to happen, and we often need the back test. So now that we know it came up here, is this just a case where now it came up all the way to here and now it's just going to try to back test to try to now not only finish the pattern, but maybe it'll extend it out now and break higher? Because if you ask me, that could be a perfect left shoulder building into a head. And then what you would have to do to expand this now is you could honestly say, if it wanted to have like an ABC correction back up and then back down, as MQ knows they like to trap on the way back down before just doing a solid wave. But you could do something like that. Would I be surprised? I would actually invite it, if I'm being honest. Paul is still here. Love the program. It's the Bitcoin connection that bothers me. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I agree with that too. It is quite frustrating that everything goes and we have to actually look at Bitcoin as closely as we have to. You know, I do agree with that. It's kind of a, to me, for my own self, it's a mind-numbing, because no matter what I see in XRP, I've always got to pay attention to the liquidity zones. And I think if we are honest with ourselves, Paul, and we open our hearts to that 88, 90K area, it makes a lot of sense for XRP that it would fail this, come back down to 210, if that's the case. Now, if it can hold this 92K area, here's the caveat. We've already come into that liquidity box. So if we could hold it, and we only hit the upper boundaries, that would stop us from coming through a little bit deeper. And then maybe we wouldn't have to do all of that. But it's just when you start to look at this, daily's rounding back down, everything that we liked before. You know, now we're back within this pattern consolidation. The one thing we did not like when we came through here is we never back tested this little, and that almost looked like an ascending, what do you call this? Ascending wedge, ascending triangle. And the only reason why it broke out bullish is normally because the uptrend is coming through, but you have a really flat resistance. And then basically eventually you just break through. Now we're looking for the back test of that structure for Bitcoin. So we might not come to 88 or all the way past 90, but it certainly looks like to me there's a magnet around that 90,000 area. It really does. It really does. So with all that being said, like, you know, we just got to look at it so we don't get too overtaken by the short-term price movement right now, because we are significantly undervalued in the monthlies, and it hasn't been like this for a while. Like, remember when Bitcoin, and look at this, is the crazy thing. Remember Bitcoin when everybody had euphoria at 126? Bitcoin, this reminds me of the miners here too. This is what they're doing in the monthly. Then they come, then they have this quick dip, right? And then it'll come back up. So I'm expecting a dip like this in the miners. Maybe it comes deeper in the monthly because the weeklies have pulled down in some. But I'm expecting the miners to kind of do this. You can see signals of it in some of the other ones that are early signals. And it's just, I like to talk about this when it's happening to see if it plays out or if it can reverse or if it shows us like just a structure that for whatever reason, when it gets into these kind of playing areas, it seems to progressively be so volatile that it will allure people from both sides. But then eventually it either breaks or it gets out of there. But then if it gets out, you can see what got it out of there. Was there volume? You know, is it just another push up and now we're off to the races because now all of a sudden the demand comes back in? You know, are we trying to, I don't know. It's just all so fascinating to me when you watch it, when you see it. You know, and like on days like today, I'm more interested when it's down 6% in some of these because now I can see the hardcore reaction. Is retail going to hold on for dear life? And are they going to let this play out? Or are they ready to just bail? You know, I like to see this. Right now, we're on the top side of this ascending breakout. So I want to know, is it early or are we ready? Because if it holds now, we could be ready for some serious price action. If it comes back down, well, maybe it's just got to come in. It came out early, a little too early, which if you look at my pattern, this isn't even accurate because of how it came. It should be like, it's pretty accurate, actually, now that I look at it. It was just the top part came out for some reason. Stupid updates. So, and if it's a breakout, though, opportunity, obviously, if it holds this area. Obviously. That's why it's so exciting right now. So super exciting. I mean, this is probably as exciting as it's going to get. But this is also Trap City. So, you know, this is exactly where, if it was me, if I was going to bring the market back down, this is where I would foster the illusion of a breakout and then bring it down here real quick and then just snap out. Like if I was the market maker, and I can do this for crypto, like I would do this, get it out and go. And then everybody who bought here, even though it was good buys, they got shuffled on the quick buy or the quick dump. They didn't even look at it on the dump. It come back out here, and then they're like, the hell with this? I bought it here before one time, and instead it builds the big reversal, and then you're out. And it created the liquidity demand that probably happens in a week or two, and then you're just back to the races. Or maybe a day or two. That's what I see could happen. So, I don't know. It's a funny thing. I feel like we were talking about this in crypto last year, and then it took a few days, and then boom. Mrs. Stott, welcome in. And thanks for being in town during 3+ months with the XRP Meteor. And Mr. Stott as well. About 30 minutes, I would say. 30 minutes. We've just been going over the market setups and things like that. How things are playing out throughout the day and what we're seeing through the miners and gold and silver. Trying to correlate patterns so we can start to train our brain. It doesn't matter what the asset is. It doesn't matter, what the scenario is. It doesn't matter how hot of a topic or, a non-discussed topic things might be at the time. You still get, no matter what the market is, you still see signals of sorts. And it almost it encapsulates like a bigger play. And the cool thing is when you start looking at it, you start to see things building out, and you're like, well, this is pretty interesting. Gold, in the 30 minutes, starting to reverse back out now. So if it does reverse this play, then you start to look at it in another optimistic way, and then you start looking at 4,584, potentially. Otherwise, if it doesn't, then obviously you have to look at the uptrend. But right now, this reversal could allow the liquidity to push up even farther now, which would be a great thing in that sector. So if I didn't say I was watching this like a hawk, I would be lying. Now, obviously, if it's not meant to come up, this is just the exhaustion in the end of the day, but we'll see. I'm not ready to say that yet. I'd like to believe we're just going to go up and come to that 93 real quick. So there's a lot to be thankful for right now in these markets as well. So just stay I mean, there's something to be said for staying the course. Just out of curiosity, in the gold, silver, miners, do you think up or down? Do you think up or down from here? Because you've had some volatility at the upside. There's no doubt about it. And yes, there's signals that maybe we are exhausting ourselves. Of course there is. But we haven't yet. We haven't technically exhausted anything yet. Have a look at Rare Earth Inc. Well, this one is basically in a much different positioning than the rest, actually. Oh, I'm bullish on silver, too. I think natural pullbacks would be key. Oh, you scare every time you see a 10 or 15% pullback in silver for the general public, they lose their mind. They lose their mind, and then it presents an opportunity, then it just comes right back up, and then they buy the top again, then it does it again. It's like rinse and repeat. That's why I could see down and up. Maybe this one was out ahead of the rest of the market, because it definitely had, but this is what I'm talking about. See how it came down in the monthly, but then right away pulled back up? That's what you would expect. This one is, and from a monthly and weekly perspective, is in a great spot compared to the rest. That's pretty insane, actually. This one's been dumping for a while the rest of them was still on the upturn. I wonder. Why is this one so different than the rest? That's interesting. I'm going to add this to my chart. That's an interesting look at that. That one's completely on the opposite swing as the rest. That's fascinating, actually. Whoops. Sorry, Algo. You got to stay in your home. Sometimes the best thing to do, if you don't know what to do, if you take just a tiny bit of profits and take some off the table, sometimes it allows you to hold for a longer period because even if it goes down, you got a little bit of scraps left over to buy a little bit more. Sometimes that's a simple answer. But yeah, I mean, look at this in the weekly. Some of these aren't so bad in the weekly. Like B2 Gold is still not in a bad spot. It's just giving us the illusion here that it might reverse a little bit. That's all. It doesn't mean it's going to. It really doesn't. Because we do have a bottom here. So that's why I said let this play out if it's going to play out. If not, and like the monthly's reversed down. So it's just a trajectory change that's making me a little bit interested to see if this does play down a little bit here. As the volume too, it's no coincidence the volume is breaking down a little bit the last couple of months as this little turnaround's happened. And we got up to the little resistance up over the top, but it never got over it. You know, we were never able to get over that area, and I don't know why it looks like that, but it should be a little bit. Wow, this is really messed up how this is now. I'm going to have to fix all of this. What a joke. I might as well just take that off for now. Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out. I want to see if there is a fundamental shift here. Be a little sad though. I've had a lot of fun watching this. I'm not ready for a 30% pullback, to be honest, or 20%. We've had one though, so. Ripple is decoupled from XRP. RLUSD gets all the marketing funding. XRP, the neglected stepchild. I could see that. It's a hard spot to be in right now. Like from the outside looking in, it's like I said Monday, it's a very difficult market to just trade in the moment right now. You know, because in a lot of senses, when you get gold and silver where they're at, I almost think gold, if it did have a little bit of a healthier pullback again, I mean it's so tough because of how it's like from a selfish standpoint, I want it to go up. From an even selfisher standpoint, I need it to go down. Because I know if it goes up and we get too far away from 77, they're doing bank bail-ins they have no choice. Otherwise, the banks are going to be so insolvent, which means we're going to have to cover the ass of the banks. Which means if you're a silver prospector right now, you want to take it on the chin and let it go down to 66, at least for a little bit, so that these banks don't go completely insolvent. Because they have so many put options that they took out. They don't have the money to cover these. They don't have the silver to put on delivery. So it's like, if I gain wealth through silver, I know my standard of living is going down. And everybody should understand that. The higher silver goes, the closer we're going to be to some kind of shutdown, lockdown, war, break. I mean, we're getting to that point now for a system lockup. And we don't want that. So that's just why I'm cautious. Because I know if we get to that, I was getting a little nervous when it was at 83, I'll be honest, because that's $6 away from that 77. It's like the luxury zone. Once it's above 77, you start to get into these weird territories, especially by Friday. Because Friday's when the reverse repo or the repo comes into play, when the banks give over the money they have or they ask for, the loan, and that's the reverse repo to keep them solvent through the weekend and into the business week. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of clamping down on silver. That's what I'm saying, Mr. Scott. It makes me nervous because if it does just continue going up, I know the I think everybody in our community knows the repercussions of what happens in our everyday living. Risk assets also become less appealing for people as this plays through. And you can have a sustained down period if people just don't have the proper exposure to put into it. And this isn't to scare people. This is just so we can stay ahead. We can start to pay attention through the silver and gold. We've been paying attention to that market for a long time in this community, but I'm just saying from a general perspective, when you're on your own, just pay attention and be honest what's going on with the pricing. If it gets too out of whack and it just keeps going, we know the problem's getting worse and worse. So, well, do you guys find it convenient about what's going on with the silver and how China and Russia and a few others were able to go into Venezuela with Trump's guidance in the central banks to go get the silver before all this happened? So they're all saying there's all this silver underground. But, And there's also that dynamic too. Like if all these countries are hoarding up this silver and we can't even get our hands on it as retail, it makes perfect sense to drop the price so they can buy it and get it cheaper. So my mind is all locked around. I personally just want to see continuation. It makes things easier for my personal life. Let's continue on and let's just leave this in the dust kind of thing. And let's just have a good day. It makes it easier for Tom, for XRP Future Millionaire. For this viewing audience, in fact. But it makes it harder when I walk outside and I have to buy something. Like if God forbid you have to remodel your house or do anything like that, or you have car parts, or you go to the grocery store and you start seeing these prices. But we continue to foster illusion with oil in the United States. That's why per barrel, it's the perfect conspiracy. They keep that down. And the price per barrel, continues to be in the downward. Got a lot of very, very, very important people in this audience. CJ2 Pilot, thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 2 years with the XRP 589 Moon Badge. MQT, appreciate you for everything you do as a very trusted mod in here under the Telegram and all the timeless effort you put in to our community. It doesn't go unnoticed by me. And what you do in the Telegram, having your own little section there, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And I greatly appreciate it so much. I really do. More than I could probably ever explain. So, I just know one day I'm going to come on here and gold's going to be down again $130 or $150 and silver's going to be down 12%. I just had a weird dream last night. And when I have dreams like that, usually we're not that far away from something like that. I'm just hoping maybe it goes up to 5,000 before that happens. Then it's no big deal. I'm getting these feelings, weirdness. And just like I'm getting the weird feelings with crypto that it's the forgotten stepchild again. And no matter what happens, if we start getting that pushed down again like we are, a lot of people are not going to pay attention to it this time around. And I understand that. I really do understand that. And I'm seeing it firsthand more and more and more as the days go on. And it's a tricky proposition, if I'm being honest. This is a tricky proposition. What's going on? The whole thing is tricky. The whole thing is tricky. Because think about it. With crypto now, we've been conditioned. It's just going to go down no matter. Every time we go up, it's just going to come down farther. And with mining stocks and precious metals, or especially, forget miners, but precious metals, we're conditioned that every time it comes down, it goes up. Which means you buy every time it goes down. It's the truth for long term. But the rate of inflation often has times of the standstill moment before the quicker breakdown or the retest of higher levels. And that's what it seems like the US dollar is going to start to do possibly here. Like it could possibly catch people off guard and start, maybe if it doesn't break down here, it rephases. I don't know how possible this would be, but the dollar is on the upswing a little bit. It's correcting, but it's technically in a zone where it doesn't have to break down right now. This would actually be the catch you by the pants zone. And they try to give the illusion that it's okay to be in bonds and the US dollar is starting to recover going into the election and stuff. It just seems like the perfect time for some kind of flip to happen. And remember, gold and silver is never going up or down. The US dollar is just doing what it's doing to the downside or to the upside. And right now, the US dollar is showing life. If that's the case, that means the value in gold and silver will likely go down in the terms of the US dollar. And it's just fascinating because we're coming from down to up, down to up. And it's like every reaction has an opposite contraction, reaction, expansion. It just, every single thing that reacts, there's always something different that happens. It's just a fascinating dynamic at work right now. I know this isn't the sexiest stuff to talk about, but isn't it nice to tie markets together? For being honest, I like to tie markets together. And I also like to talk about things and see if it plays out. Like, I would love to see if silver is actually magneted to that $77 zone or this area we're in, if it's a magnet. And then if it eventually does drop us down because of all of, like a lot of retail, because they're cheaper, and I talked about it on Monday, they're starting to take out call options for 125, 150. But their I'm out of luck zone is like $66, and it was interesting that it's at that price. But yeah, so I'm trying to find every reason why it doesn't have to go down, but also being optimistic or cautiously optimistic and knowing what the signals are, the early warning signals, the signs that something's not right. And I've kind of laid it out here this morning. And we're not in that position yet. I know silver's down 3%. Big deal. It started the week at 73 or whatever. So is it really down? But it is still 3%. And yes, it's come up some. So we have to make sure that this isn't just like a retest of a retracement and then we just continue down. It's the same thing to miners. Technically, you know, it is what it is. They're down a little bit. Some are down more than others, no doubt. But at the same time, we need to see if this continues. There are always liquidity grabs that happen everywhere. So are we ready to throw in the towel on silver and just say it's going to happen? No. No, we are not. But when most people are running to the same pile, what happens to that pile? Suddenly it becomes less valuable for some reason. The less people that are running to the pile, it becomes very valuable. Which is interesting in a world of supply demand. You'd expect it to be the opposite way. So I try to look at all signals equally. So crypto though, and I understand we've talked a lot about all markets today, which is important. It really is. You got to take bread days and try to explain what's going on. And then if you start seeing validation or invalidation, at least you know. At least you know. Wow, CJ2 Pilot, thank you so much for not only being in Tom's Army for over 2 years with the XRP 589 Moon Badge, but also gifting a sub. That's incredibly generous. And Monster Live gets the gifted sub now in Tom's Army for the second month with the Dusty's Autos Crypto News. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? That is so cool. I can't thank you enough, to be honest. That's really cool. What a great audience we have. Great, inspiring, motivating, just awesome audience. Really not sure. You know, I'm not sure exactly how do you guys deal with just the mindset of trying to watch it all and literally trying to be honest in each approach to be like, okay, what do we really look at here? Like, what are we really looking like? And like for crypto, I'm okay right now because I know in my gut that it would have to come down to like 210 if it wants to back test. And if we don't want to come through $1.99.7, that would be a perfect spot. And then I try to build out a pattern to see what would fit. And that does seem to make sense. Now, you could also say that it doesn't need to come back out here. And it could just pull straight down. And it would still make sense to me. Obviously, there was a double bottom here. You know, when I had this expanded down. But I would still be okay with that if you just said, you know, it's going to do... Whoops. Like if it's... What did I have? Like this. Oh, this whole thing moved. Yeah. Because we had it like this. So I'd still be okay if you wanted to do this. I'm just saying. I'm looking to see if there would be this retest fake out or if it would just come through. It might just come right through and do something like that. That is possible. If it were to break down. We're making a cup and handle on the 1 hour USDT dominance. It's another good one to look at. Speaking of indicators to look at or look towards. Let's see. What was, USDT, that's down here. And what sucks is this came right into the circled box we had. So it actually filled that out into the first area. So that was my first expectation of where it would come. Weekly's rounding, but daily's reversing up, which is very interesting. That's interesting. because I would rather the weekly being overbought and the monthly moving up to try to show that we have some strength here. That could be a little bit of a signal there that something's not right and we should actually expect some volatility to the upside. We still know what we've been expecting out of the dominance. If it does play out, yes, it might have dumped out, but that's not our expectation overall, because we still have the inverse pattern, and the expectation would be that it might be able to come back up here even farther, almost 8%. I would hope it wouldn't break out of here and control out of dominance, because that would indicate a crypto winner like we've never seen, obviously, with dominance. But there's more dominance in the stable coins in a while. But I would also argue, is it possible that maybe we're topping out right now? Shoulder, head. Eventually, if no matter where this goes, it builds like a shoulder here. And then that starts to be the contraction phase back down to where there's much less dominance. Like at historic lows of dominance, hopefully. Because more and more people... Yes, we're in bear, but I believe it's the shortest bear yet. Let's watch and see. Yep. Yes, indeed. One of the, like I said, in all markets, we are in a very tricky spot. Almost unprecedented. Almost unprecedented. I guess the perceived power play, though, the power play, hey, we're getting all this gold and silver, and, I mean, can you just, the biggest struggle I have is I know the powers that be, and I know the control they have. I can't see a scenario where they just right away now let these banks just fall. And that scenario would be to just let silver run unopposed to 93. A 93 would crush them. If it goes to 93 right now, we're gonna be in so much trouble with the banks. The problem is, before everybody says, "Oh, that's okay," a lot of our IRAs, retirement accounts, they may be directly or indirectly correlated to your banking branch, because a lot of the banks own the trading. You know, they're tied into banks. That's where they get their liquidity. It's a tricky proposition. But we are in euphoria with silver in that sector right now. We're in disbelief, in my opinion, in crypto. Direct contrast. Ooh, that's a nice way. That's a nice observation, MQ. No, they don't want 1,000 banks that aren't the central banks. They want them all controlled. Which means they can't have JP Morgan, you know, or the bigger ones going bankrupt over this. But that's also why you see JP Morgan has moved a lot of his stuff out of the USA, and he instead, or the entity JP Morgan, has, instead of having the record short, they were buying a record amount of actual physical silver before a lot of this rally was happening. So either they were trying to cover their shorts and they knew what was going to happen short term, because to me the bigger power play would be some of these big banks, they have the vaults of silver that they bought, left hand shorting it, right hand's buying the ones for delivery just for when they get that margin call. They know the raising capital requirements that are coming. They let the market sleek up, make it look like we're going to have this impending disaster. So while they're able to cover all of these things, this aka the central banks, some of the smaller banks, some of the credit unions and the smaller institutions, they don't have this luxury. They actually get called down to shit. And then when the price drops back down, JP Morgan not only cleans up on the up with the holdings of precious metals and can deliver the ones that he needs to with significant profit, mind you. So even that margin call doesn't mean anything. It's only at 25%. And then it ended up being a 33% capital requirement at the end with the raised 9% the second time. So then would that be the play? Because then he can capitalize because he kept those options open and probably expanded to it. And now when it gets down to that 66 or it comes back down and retest those lower numbers, now those other companies are all gone. he cleans up, or the entity that is similar to JP Morgan, the ones playing the same side, and you get rid of all the competition with the illusion that this is happening. This is just a question. Does that even make sense, or am I overthinking this? That would be my conspiracy of what's going on in the interim. Is that stupid? Because I think it would make a lot of sense on what's going on here with the gold and silver pricing and why it drastically fell again. I mean, who knows? Maybe it goes to 83, 89, 93 and they do this, but the higher it goes, the higher the requirement is, so. Mrs. G said, I think crypto will merge with the other market cycles. I don't hate that, I don't hate that observation, actually. The only thing that I see with crypto, though, is it didn't run with, like, I see a distinct separation, though, from the store of value side, and it's linked to gold and silver, and, you know, the price of gold or silver, how they would run with it. I see a direct divergence lately, especially over the last year, from crypto with the volatility or the viability for it to be the same as a risk asset. I think in that regard, it's actually creating its own path very secretly right now. And people are looking at it as a bad thing, but it had to get away from store of value because it's not. You know, so I think it's starting to actually create its own direction, you know, crypto as a whole. But, you know, that's just something, that's something I see kind of starting to take place and trying to lay roots here, so to say. GSR has dropped 16.2% in 1 month. Yeah, the gold-silver ratio. Yeah, it's come down a lot. It's come down a lot. And it's down on, what is it today? Up 2.5%. And see, both of them are coming down, so a good way for that to go back up a little bit. You have both of them go down, but silver's going to come down faster than gold in that scenario. So that ratio will work itself out on its own. It's another reason to look at it. How high did we get back after the initial drop today? Does anybody remember? So we can kind of start looking at this in a realistic way. Oops. This must be my sunny day stuff. So the initial drop, we came down here. 76, 79, 79, or 79, 76, 38. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because we can start to draw a top like this, and then it'll tell us, you know, eventually if it can get back over it. But you can see a defining pattern starting. Look at this. And if this has to meet somewhere, I mean, you could, for all intents and purposes, take out the wick and start drawing something like that if you wanted to. Now, I would suggest probably to go down, personally. It's nice to sometimes look at this outside of crypto to try to reinvent your mind so you remember when you're looking at crypto when it's on a downturn that it's not bad. You got to remember, like, everything that goes down must go up, and everything that must go up has to correct down. So actually we might have to keep it like this just because it comes out here. But then it went up, and then you would actually use it from this wick. So suppose I don't have to be so damn stubborn. But either something like that, if it plays out. Now, if it gets past there, well, we're good. I think this would just be the short-term caveat. Heck, even if you wanted to, you could do this, even in the 4-hourly, and you'd have something like this, and then something like this. I would probably say this would be more if you wanted to cut off the bottom and top wicks for the exhaustion and just get into the body. If you want to have it like a tighter window. So, yeah, no, I've been a little focused in all markets today just because there's some, like with trying to learn technical analysis, there's a 2 candlestick reversal pattern in the daily, which is just something that was a good teaching tool as well. You had a nice, it almost looked like an inverted hammer, but it had a quick fake out, down, back up, invalidated even the retest to try to break back up, and now it opened up and it has a new low today. This would be a 2 candlestick reversal pattern. It's a classic bearish reversal candle, but it has to be validated, you know. So, but if this did play out, it would be classic for this to come back down here and retest at $3.30, $3.20, or somewhere between $3.20 and $3.35. And this is just an early warning that we are having a 2 candlestick reversal. And there's other things that are starting to show that early sign, like Dolly Varden is showing it's a classic ascending wedge. And right now, we tried to come up here. We had a reversal yesterday. So this could, in fact, be another 2 candlestick reversal after a fake out back up. This candle was looking like it could come, and then it got rejected. This one hasn't exactly retaken anything. And if that's the case, it's going to end up coming back down at least to the bottom at 426 to see bullish or bearish. But if it breaks that, then, you know, you'd have the back test. And I think it makes sense because I circled it here before at $3.98 roughly. I think it should back test. I don't think they're going to be ultra violent. I think if this happens, though, it's giving us the early signal, you know, for some that maybe it is time to get some profits just so we have something on the sidelines in case it comes down. So I'm just trying to show, but that has to complete the validation point and continue the faltering. You'll know if gold and silver falls and, you know, you start to see silver starting to lose that 44.40 area, that's a big sign. If gold loses 4,440 and silver loses $77, those are key signs right now after what we've already come back up. So that's what I would be looking for. I feel you could just run overview technical analysis on the entire market. Looking at all those charts is looking out a sea of twins. Yeah. But it by going from market to market, it allows you to understand when opportunity is present, when we've gone up way too far as present, like when we've been overbought, and when, you know, you just kind of let it play out. Remember, we didn't let our emotions get to us on this stock. It got up. We knew that it was probably a fake out based on what our technicals were saying. It got rejected, and now it's starting to push. I know the monthly is way oversold, which is what we are optimistic about, that it's pushed into there. The weekly is giving us an opportunity, though, because it's pushing down through mid. It looks like we could actually do this. And yes, it's taken a lot of patience on our part, but it looks like we could start this downturn. And if this happens, you know, this will be another case in point of patience when it comes to Northern Oil and Gas. Like Murphy's, it's going to take a lot of patience. It came all the way up here to $46 not too long ago in July of 24, and then it comes all the way back down. Now we need to make sure if this is a fake out, which is what I'm hoping for. They try to trap people. It gets rejected, and now we get this big come down, and I put a buy zone. This is when it gets down. It's supposed to be a little bit farther. It's supposed to be that's the buy. When it gets into, I guess it wants to keep it up there, whatever. But that's when it gets into my own buy zone. So, and it could be higher up. But this has happened in every cycle. Before oil has a bullish market, it always cuts off by a significant amount. With today's optics, you know, with Venezuela and today's society, what's happening with the geopolitical stuff, that would suggest to you to run in right now, but oftentimes that ends up being the trap. You know, it's the can't miss. Remember, it's can't miss. This is the can't miss trade. Look at silver, nobody can buy it. It's a can't miss. It has to go up with nobody paying attention to where all these options are taken out. And by it going up to 83, it caused a big problem to start the week already. So don't think it hasn't had its rippling effect that's happening as we speak. But as we talk about all of that, so XDC right now down 3% on the day. I know we've been here over an hour, but it was very important, I thought, today. If you enjoy what I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button at the very least. Become a part of this community. If you want to become a paid member, you can always join Tom's Army. You get the exclusive Telegram. Soon there's going to be a higher level because people want higher learning, and I was going to do this on a separate thing, but I'm going to keep it all on YouTube. to where you can subscribe on YouTube, and that might be out today. I've got it all done. It's just a matter of me pulling the trigger. So, what do you think? Just like in 22. 22 to 6 to 25, then breakout. I don't hate what you're saying about XRP backtesting the falling wedge. We talked about this earlier in the live about backtesting that falling wedge. And that could get you all the way down. $1.80 is a perfect spot, but it could even drag on farther depending on how long it takes on the back test to go a little bit deeper than that. So I don't hate what you're saying on all of these. Like we had falling wedges basically across the board on all of these. And now it's just a matter of we never back tested it. And I kind of want to get rid of this. Well, not this in between because XDC's got obviously something that it created here. But this whole thing is, I mean, you can make the case that you might as well just keep it like that. And like this whole thing is all messed up because of TradingView. Anybody who has TradingView, you're going to hate the update. Because this is how it actually was. Like, look at how off everything is. Unbelievable. But then you have the smaller wedge, the descending or the falling wedge, that technically, I mean, if this back test, you're looking at 4.7 on XDC, which is not a matter of if, it looks like it's about to happen. So we got rejected at that liquidity box. We talked about it. We had to turn that into a buy box instead of a sell box like it's been before, and we just couldn't do it yet. We just couldn't do it yet. And now we've come back down through the breakout, so that's invalidated, at least for the moment. Nothing wrong, it's just that's the way it goes. And we expected it to come down at some point to validate. No, I know the update is awful. They're going in the wrong direction on TradingView. When I first started on YouTube, it was awesome. And most of it was free. Now you have to, it's just not, there's a lot of differences. They're jumping the shark a little bit, but the problem is there's nothing else to replace it, unfortunately. And then the other thing I would say is get the MACD on here now. Whoops. We should get the MACD on here. Like, look, XDC's rotating down in the daily. I mean, seems that we put in a perfect reversal. You know, it just looks like that's what's happening in crypto. And there's no reason to be afraid of it. It's just that's what's happening. We had a nice euphoric run here to start the year. And I'm not saying it's over because right now we're still at the 20-day. You know, we're still in the Golden Cross area. So I'm not, by no means not saying it's over because it could very easily, I think it can still go to 264. Especially if gold and silver is meant to topple out and mining stocks. That's why we had such a big emphasis. If that's meant to topple out here in the next week or two, that's going to give us all the more reason why crypto is going to run up to that rejection point up higher. And this is just the start of this little push. You know, this all can play into it, so I'm not stuck to this like a hawk for no reason. I literally have this in my mind all played out. It just needs to do it now. I knew we had to get through that painful moment of it going back up to double top around 83, which now that's over. We've at least done that. Now if it's meant to go down lower, it's cleared some of that. And the key point right now is $77 for silver. If it can hold, we're golden. And for gold, if it holds 4,440, we're golden. Anything under both of those points, you get into liquidity zone. Now, I'm going to end this. I want to put it on vertical so we can talk as people and not with the charts in front of me. If you're down with that, you want to have like a 15-minute topic of discussion, something I might want to start now, we can do that. If not, it was a blessing. But if you want to see me in a different way, in vertical, and just talking as a person instead of with the charts out, you're more than welcome to come in, consider it a question and answer, or try to figure things out deeper from a knowledgeable standpoint. So I'll be back in about 10 minutes if you would like to join that.